Hey, happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to The Other Side of Addiction. I am Al Richards, and I am here with my one and only lovely assistant, Lori Warburton, the lady in red, first responder. I'm excited about today's show. What about you, Lori?
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah?
Yep. We've been waiting for this lady to come on for a while. So I've also got a copy of your book, and I've been reading that. I didn't know if you knew that. So it's been an inspiration to me, and I'm really happy that you're here. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let us introduce our special guest today is Sohma Rae Hathaway. I love that name, Sohma Rae Hathaway. That is so cool. So, Sohma, she's an artist. Now, I've seen some of her artwork. This woman is incredible, and I'm not just saying that to just say it. Your artwork is, your paintings are, see, I got goosebumps.
Aww.
They are phenomenal. They really are. So gosh, Sohma is an author, speaker, pain specialist, which I really like that, pain specialist, having survived through a plethora of painful experiences. So she was raised in a home fraught with drugs, which we've heard that a lot, alcohol and abuse. She is quite familiar with the broken patterns of belief systems. And also, she is self-taught sterling scholar in art, which we talked about her artwork, and we need to get into that a little bit later. She also has a book called Finding Diamonds in Dungeons, which my wife read the whole book too, and it is phenomenal. She loved your book. And one of the copies that you gave me, I actually gave to Lori, so that's how.
Oh, great!
That's how
I love pass it on, man.
So yeah, so Sohma's story illustrates the power of human spirit overcoming great trials such as cancer, divorce, death of loved ones, narcissistic.
Narcissistic.
We work on our words.
Hey guys, we'll get it. I'm a talker. I just don't know how to say English words. Also, abuse, chronic physical pain, and much more. So, when I reached out to you, I don't know, it was maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whatever it was. There was something that was kind of brought to my attention, and I wanted to reach out to you on that. And you and I just started our conversation just kind of like the first time we did when we met each other, which was at a hospital, right?
Yeah,
because
right,
your husband at the time, his brother was in the hospital, and I grew up with his brother, and I actually kind of grew up with
Steve as well.
Steve.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us a little bit more about you. I mean, I said just a little bit here, but tell us more about Sohma.
Well, like you said, I grew up in kind of a tumultuous upbringing. My stepfather was an alcoholic. My mother was a drug addict, as was my older brother eventually. And so I grew up around a lot of those broken belief systems and those patterns that are extremely unhealthy, and you see how they can carry on through generations. And so as I became an adult, I started to recognize some of those patterns, but it wasn't until I had been through a lot of pain, right? Pain is what can wake us up to something that's important. And that's finally what it did for me. And the beginning of my book talks about that. It was one of my lowest moments and most painful moments, but it was also a pivotal moment for me to look inward and say, okay, why have I been drawn to these types of relationships? Why am I enduring so much pain? And it was the beginning of a new path for me of awareness. Now, before that time, I had also recognized patterns, and I was, deep into self-help books and stuff like that. So I think having done that helped me when I finally hit rock bottom to be able to reflect on those things that I had learned, and then, be able to shift into a different direction and start working to get over those patterns.
So when you say rock bottom, we've had other guests that talks about their rock bottom. It's the same, but it's different.
Yeah.
What was your rock bottom?
Well, I've actually had a couple.
Okay,
For different reasons.
Share them. Yeah,
So the one is in the beginning of the book. Like I said, I was married to a narcissist, and it was coming to that realization that he didn't have the capacity to love me. And I had this expectation that he did love me. And so there was a huge loss that I had to grieve. And, you know, there's several different phases of grieving, we all know. But one of those is anger and upset. So anyway, I won't tell you what happened to me because you can get the book and read it.
Ooh,
but
cliffhanger already. Dang. My fingers are on the edge of the desk.
But the other time I hit rock bottom, sometimes it's not just the trial that we're going through, but it's the multiple trials in a row that we have to deal with. We keep getting knocked down and knocked down and knocked down. And then, you know, you're just finally at this emotional state where you just think, man, how can I keep going after all these things that have happened?
Can I say something like, is this all that life has to offer me?
Yeah,
Okay, because
right?
you're speaking, like, a lot of the words that you've been talking about already is my life, you know, portrayed in my life as well.
And I don't know what your belief is, but I would get mad at God, and because I fully believe that there's a God, but I just thought that he didn't like me. I thought he was out to get me.
I never got mad at anybody. I was just wondering what the heck's going on here.
Oh, see, I definitely went into the anger phase of grieving, not attacking anybody personally, but definitely got very, very angry. And the same, so there's actually a third rock bottom I get. So the second one, there was a lot of stuff going on. I had to leave my narcissist, and I was left penniless and homeless and jobless. And then he stole my car. So I was at a point where you can't really get a job without an income, and you can't. I mean, a place to get you, a car to get you there, and you can't get a car without income. So I was kind of stuck in this rut, and I had to borrow a vehicle for somebody and work this crazy job up in Park City during the film festival, which was just I worked crazy hours.
I bet.
So I was very, very, very tired, exhausted, and then I found out that a very, very close loved one of mine passed away, committed suicide. So that was one of the rock bottoms. Now, the next one, this is why I call, I'm referred to as a pain specialist, because the next one had to do with physical pain. I had a back surgery go terribly wrong. Before the surgery, I did have some sciatic pain. I had it for quite a while. I had a herniated disc. He went in to shave off that herniation, and I woke up from surgery in much, much worse pain than I ever was before surgery, and it just kept getting worse over the month. And I would call the doctor in tears and leaving messages, please, please, I'm in so much pain. You've got to help me. I don't understand what's going wrong. The narcotics wouldn't work for me. I was like I had an adverse reaction to most of them. I'd throw up, and so it was just a miserable, miserable time. And that was probably, I mean, it was equally as difficult as the other rock bottoms, because when you have chronic physical pain that goes on for not weeks but months, month after month after month, 6 months, I'm still in a lot of pain. I couldn't walk for the first 2 months. I had to have my husband drag me to the bathroom. I've had 9.5 and 10-pound babies naturally. So I do believe I know what pain is, but this back pain was, here's labor pain, and back pain was just so much more than that.
I remember the time when you were fighting.
Yeah,
through
when
that.
we first met, I was still dealing with a lot of
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's I've gotten a lot better, but part of the equation in that is learning mentally how to deal with chronic pain. So those are the experiences that I've had with pain. And while some of the things we go through, I think aren't actually necessary, I do believe that pain in our life is a necessity. And what we do with pain can make a huge difference, a huge impact in our lives. So, that's and I didn't ever want to write a book. I just felt very compelled to start writing the experiences that I had, mostly with the narcissist and the other experiences that I went through in childhood. But I didn't know what the end of the book was going to be. Did I tell you this? Did I tell you this story? I had no idea.
I don't think so, because I've got some things to mention about things that I've read in the book, but yeah.
Well, I thought, I'm not going to write a book just to be a victim and say, oh my goodness, can you believe this happened to me and this happened to me? Like, I wanted to make some kind of an impact. But, and I didn't know what that was. I hadn't had any aha moment, but I felt like God was telling me, just trust me and write this book. And I thought, I've never written a book. I mean, I didn't ever, anyway. So, after writing it, I think I had been at least 6 months into writing the book when I had the back surgery. And it might have been longer. You'd have to look in the book. I can't remember now. But as I was going through that very, very intense pain, I decided to have a conversation with pain and say, make pain an entity and say, why do you feel like you've had to be in my life so often? You were in my life when I was 5 years old and my parents got divorced. You were in my life when I was hit by a truck and as a teenager. You were in, this and this and this. And I said, we need to get down to the bottom of this. And as I was having that discussion, I had this aha moment. And I knew the instant that I had this aha moment that was the end of my book. That everything that I had been working for, that was the reason. And I won't tell you the end either because you haven't read it yet.
I didn't read the very end yet. But.
I remember parts in that book where you were talking to pain.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool because it reminded me of the Napoleon Hill book called Interview with the Devil.
Oh, yeah.
And that is a phenomenal book. And, I mean, it was written back in 1934, and his wife made him promise that book was not to be published as long as they were alive because she was afraid they were going to be the laughing stock of America.
Yeah.
But the way he wrote the book, there are a lot of people that think he actually sat down and interviewed the devil the way it's written. And that's what it reminded me of when you were having a conversation with pain.
Yeah.
I've never read a book where someone has a conversation with something that is bugging the shit out of them, basically,
The really exciting part about that is that when I did the audio version, I reached out to a friend who's an amazing podcaster. He's quite famous, and he's got a radio voice, kind of like you do. And he
Brad's blushing.
So, what's his name?
Jeff Brown.
Jeff Brown
of the Read to Lead podcast. Mm-hmm. And if anybody listening has not listened to that podcast, it's amazing. He interviews the best of the best authors. And he's really, really good. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, I know I probably can't afford you, but I'd really love you to be the voice of pain in my audiobook. I said, and I'd be glad to do a painting for you as well, because I was hoping that would bring down the price, right? And he reached back to me and he said, oh, we'll just do it for trade. So I did a painting of his 3 dogs, and he helped me out. It was just
he's
neat.
Phenomenal.
He is.
Because I heard that part too.
Yeah.
He is a good painter.
And here's another backstory on that. when he first did it, it sounded kind of podcasty to me. I mean, and I said, could you do me a favor? I mean, this big influencer, and I'm like, that was really nice. Thanks for the favor, but I need another one. I said, could you take a couple of days and just read your Bible, contemplate these different things, and then come back and record it again? And he did, and I got chills. I got chills when he read it. It was just that good. So, and then there's other miracles that happened too. As I was contemplating, the words that are said in that last chapter are the most important words of the whole book. But you can't just run to the last chapter and read it, because you won't understand the content of it. You won't understand all the pain and experiences that led up to that. So, but I felt like it needed more of an impact. Those words were so important to me, and I really wanted to reach people on a different level. And so I was sitting there, and it kind of seemed like God tapped my shoulder and said, why don't you add music? I thought, oh, okay. So we did. I talked to Steve, and he said, oh, I've got this great song that might work. And I said, well, don't you think it would have to be specifically made to go with the words that are being said, And he said, oh, well, let's just try this out. So we put it in, and the song is literally like it was made for that recording.
That's awesome.
It was amazing. So,
something that I admire about you, Sohma, is all of us take things different ways, right? I mean, all of us go through pain throughout our life, some worse than others. Some of us, we can shake it off like a dog just shaking the water off. Other people, it weighs on them and weighs on them and weighs on them and really starts destroying their life. What I've admired from the time we've known each other and talking with you is how you have taken all the pain, and instead of letting it weigh you down, you've taken that experience and you're like, okay, where can I take it to the next level to where it's not going to take me down, even though you've come very, very close. You said you've hit rock bottom many times, but you've been able to, as someone said on a podcast that I was on, you dropped the shovel, you quit digging. It's like enough's enough. I mean, so our audience knows, because there are people out there that are still struggling. What was it that motivated you to put down that shovel? What opened your eyes? I mean, I've been angry at God too, many times. And after I do, then I feel really embarrassed and real guilty, because I'm telling my Father who created me, I'm telling him off. He knows where life's supposed to go.
Yeah.
We don't, and we want to rush things. But what got you to start changing the levels after every time that you drop that shovel?
Well, first of all, I want to say that God understands.
Mm-hmm.
He understands that we're not going to always respond perfectly. I think we're harder on ourselves, and we beat ourselves up, and then think, oh, well, I'm just no good. What's the point?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But when you talk about motive, I think discipline is one of the core parts of human development. But you've got to you can't just have that discipline. There has to be a motive behind it. So I think that's what you're asking is, what is the motive to extend myself beyond what I would normally want to do? And the answer to that is love. Love is the motive. When I realized that I could help somebody else, it wasn't about, you don't do it for yourself. That's not enough of a motive. When people say, oh, this will make you stronger, you're like, I don't want to be stronger. I just want it to be over. But when you can extend yourself and focus on loving other people and wanting to make an impact in their lives and make the pain that you've gone through something that you can share with them so they won't have to go through the same pain. I mean, all of us can't possibly experience everything there is to experience in life.
No.
Right? So we have to help each other. And we relate to each other by our stories and the things we learn.
I think we learn from each other every single day. And one unique thing that I feel like I was given as a talent, and I talk about this because I feel like God gives us talents from the very beginning because he knows we're going to have challenges. And sometimes we don't recognize what those are until later. But one of mine was unconditional love for people, like always. I mean, I didn't know how I could endure the things that I went through and just dust myself off and move on to the next level, which I've done throughout my life. But I realized it was that unconditional love he gave me and forgiveness in my heart that I have. Not everybody can do that. And that's why I've never gotten angry with God. I just never knew him on the level that I know him now.
That's
you know,
awesome.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, we're all given these specific talents. We're given those, and like you learned when yours was, you know, and how you can help other people through that, through the pain, like you call it. I've had a lot of pain in my life too, from a young girl. I like how you said from the time of 5 years old. I'm relating to you very much throughout this whole podcast so far. And, you know, the death of a loved one, loss of a job. I mean, all these different things can bring you to your knees in different ways like no one would recognize.
Yeah.
I was also married to a narcissist as
Oh.
well, and diagnosed with that specific disease because his father had that as well. And you get to that point where I feel like, I mean, that's where I was. I was fine, dusting myself off, moving on, loving people, giving myself to everybody, losing my identity when my mom died from cancer, right? And then just keep going on and on and on. But then finally, I reached this level where it's like, I said, is this really all there is in life? And it's painful. That's when the real pain hit me. I mean, I've been through a lot of pain, trust me, and we're victors. We're not victims.
Right.
I can tell that from you, and we don't want anyone to feel sorry for us. And I like how you mentioned that, because that's sometimes a fear that we have by talking about our stories. Oh, poor me, poor me. No, I never had that.
Yeah.
My cute grandson, 18 years old, he was getting ready to leave to go on a mission. And he said, Grandma, there's one thing I want you to know. Sorry, this is going to make me cry a little bit.
Why are you saying so? You know we cry on this show all the time.
Sweet.
Yeah.
But I picked him up because I wanted to have a personal visit with him before he left for 2 years. That was his choice, college or this. His parents didn't ever make him choose between one or the other. They let him decide and do what he wanted. But we've always been super close. And he said, Grandma, you know what amazes me about you most? And I said, no, what's that? And he said, no matter what you go through, he said, he goes, I don't know how you do it, but he says you roll on and you pick yourself up. And he says, and you're just successful at everything and you just keep going. He said, you're an inspiration to me. And from an 18-year-old grandchild to me,
That's awesome.
that's such a gift.
Well, and I'll bet it's because you're connected with your why, right? That's
Oh,
talked about a
definitely.
lot.
Oh.
That you've got to know your
Why.
reason, your why. What's your why? Everybody says, what's your why? Well, like I said, I think love is the motivation behind that. And so a saying that I have is make the love in your why stronger than the walls in your way.
You know, and I'm glad both
I
of
like
you guys
that.
brought this up, because JD, our guest a couple weeks ago, brought up this. He says there are two important days in your life: the day you were born and the day you figure out why.
Yeah.
So sometimes some of us get it early. Other times it takes us through life experiences to get us to where we understand or why is that? So I love that. I'm glad you guys brought that up.
Well, I would say a third one is the day you come to terms with pain.
That could be a
I
third
think
one. Yeah.
I think
You know?
that,
Yeah.
and also your purpose, because sometimes the pain is not knowing your purpose. After after all this, you given me all these talents, all these different things, and you go through years of all of this, but the day you wake up and you realize, wow, this is my purpose, because there's a lot of people out there who are struggling with finding that little,
Yeah.
Well,
big thing, I should say. It's
and
not a little thing.
Just
Yeah.
a heads up for everybody. Once you do find your purpose, the universe is going to test you to make sure that's your purpose.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I'll,
I mean-
I'll second the one. I'll second that
It's
one.
never
Yeah.
going to be, this is my purpose, and oh, here's my beautiful path.
Yep.
No, that's not the way it works.
They're still throwing boulders on it or in it. Or,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on about all of the technical issues that I had, just technical issues alone getting my book out. It was
Oh, yeah.
astronomical.
You were sharing a lot of it with
Oh,
me, and
it's so great.
I was scratching my head most of the time, going,
Yeah.
"How the hell is she handling this?"
Yeah.
Because I
Well-
would be going nuts.
And I'm going to be really transparent here, and because I would break down and swear a lot. And the one time, this poor laptop, I had my laptop and it had just been going on day after day after day, one issue after another. I mean, I even reached out and got tech support, people who are experts on it, going, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know how to help you. I don't know. This should be working." And so I can't tell you how many times that I heard this should be working. So I'm on my laptop and I'm finally just like, boom, 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 and I threw the laptop. And I gave it to my son later to have him try to fix it, and it was literally dented in. Where he's like, hopefully I can get the information off of this. But anyway, it happens. But I wanted to go back a little bit to the topic of love, because your podcast is about addiction, and I have had very close loved ones that were alcoholics, and so I have that perspective. But I was not an alcoholic. That was not my addiction. My addiction is an addiction to people, and that, people don't like the word that's associated with that because it's kind of a bad buzzword, and that's codependency. People think if they're labeled as being codependent, then that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I'm here to say that there are positive things about that. A codependent person has an incredible capacity to love. And the problem is balancing that between self-love and extending ourselves to others. So there's this book, I know you all know about it, The Road Less Traveled, right? So in The Road Less Traveled, there's a whole section, 100 pages on defining love, and I would highly recommend that to anyone.
It's a good book.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So he says, I define love thus: the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. So the problem with codependence is that we don't nurture our own growth, right? It's harder to keep in balance with that. So I think that's important for a codependent. There's a lot to say about love, but
Yeah, there is. Well, and yeah, I don't even know where to go off with that. Lori, did you have something?
Well, I think loving in a healthy manner, once you learn to love yourself, and that's where it all falls into place. Because I think what we lack sometimes is that, I know for me, like, I didn't really understand that I was hurting so much inside. I had no idea because I buried this deep within, right? And so I just didn't want anybody to hurt as much as I had hurt throughout my life. So I just made it my mission that I was just going to make them smile if I could tell someone was having a bad day. But there's such thing as giving so much of yourself that your cup is just so dry and you don't know why that is, and you're completely running out, right? And so once you learn to love yourself, and that comes from understanding why you didn't in the first place. And that's what I like to always come back to, because that seed that was built at that time, if you don't find what that is, sometimes you can't find self-love. And when you do, it's like a miracle. And I've been through this, and this is why I can speak about it. And I'm thankful for that every day, because I think I thought I loved myself, but I really didn't know that until years later.
Well, there's a scripture that comes to my mind. Love thy neighbor as thyself, not love thy neighbor instead of thyself.
Yeah.
And so that's and there's a whole other topic we could talk about later, which is the difference between self-love and self-indulgence.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's another balance.
Yeah.
So,
Well, guys, we're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, let's touch base a little bit more on the love part. And then also, I know a little bit about your story. I'm pretty sure it was you where when you left the relationship, being married to a narcissist, you and your kids lived in a closet for a while, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
we'll talk about that.
Let's come back. Oh my gosh, yeah.
For me too. It's pretty
Awesome.
scary. Yeah.
So guys, stick around. We've got some more great stuff to share with you when we return. Remember, love can't always save us, but it can be the reason why we fight.
How do you start your morning? Start it with a cup of High Point coffee. Because no matter where you go or what you do, it's always better with coffee. High Point Coffee. What's your high point? Located on the corner of 7800 South and Redwood Road in West Jordan. And a special thanks goes out to our partners in Oxford, Mississippi.
This is Gregory, owner of Lift Up Concrete, proudly serving the Wasatch Front for the last 12 years, lifting sunken flatwork for both residential and commercial applications. Only fully trained professionals lifting concrete at your residence with the same quality of material and method used at every commercial job we ever do. Don't replace it, lift it. liftupconcrete.net, 801-792-4535. Contact us at liftupconcrete.net, or if you're looking for a complimentary quote, 801-792-4535. Again, 801-792-4535. Again, this is Gregory, Lift Up Concrete Lifting.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the other side of addiction. Man, the first half of the show was awesome. But before we start, I want to thank our sponsor, High Point Coffee out of West Jordan off 7800 South and Redwood Road in West Jordan. These guys are phenomenal. And while you watch this podcast, we have a cool commercial. That commercial turned out phenomenal. I love it. I love it. So right before we went on break, we were talking about self-love and self-indulgence. Indulgence.
Yeah. So I think there's a delicate balance there. And, you know, you have there's the saying, oh, live in your truth. You know, my truth is this, my truth is that, and I just need to stand up for that. Well, that can be very deceiving because most of us have some kind of indulgence, some kind of either minor or major addiction. We could be addicted to power. We can be addicted to prestige, or
how about being addicted to an addiction?
Yeah.
Because my wife battled alcoholism, and I was addicted to her addiction.
Yeah.
It consumed me.
Yeah. You can. So there's in this book here, He Restoreth My Soul. He's actually Donald Hilton, and he is a brain surgeon. So it's from a scientific perspective. He tells us about there's two different types of addiction. There are the addictions that we take something internally, so drugs, alcohol, that changes the chemicals, or there are outside addictions, which would be gambling or pornography or
gaming,
things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the same thing, whether it's an outer addiction or an inner addiction, the same thing happens in the head. Mm-hmm. The chemicals that happen in the brain. So we're dealing with the same thing. And when we say I'm living in my truth, well, addictions lie. Addictions lie to you, and they will tell you that this self-love, that this self-indulgence is self-love, and it's not. You know, it's two different things.
It tricks you.
And self-indulgence can even be you obsessing about the past or how things have gone wrong, or, you know, like we were talking about on the break, is being addicted to the drama, you know. Those things can be addictive as well. So it's all about balance. You know, love yourself, but not self-indulgence, and love others, but not be obsessed with them and what they would do for you.
Again, it goes back to paying attention to what's going on in your head.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You have to have an awareness. So there's a couple things. Awareness is the beginning, right? Just being aware doesn't mean you have to be perfect at it. You can just be, that's where I messed up there. I did that, and that was my self-indulgence or whatever. And then you have to have a growth mindset, because if you come into something saying, I've always been this way, I'll always be this way, I will never think, my brain will never think that way, then you're limiting
just
yourself.
The way I am.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the wrong
I
mindset.
cannot stand any of those statements.
You're limiting yourself.
Yep.
Right from the beginning. You're just cutting off your opportunities for growth. So you have to have a growth mindset. And I think that's important. Now, one of the other things, I don't know if you wanted to say anything on that, but I didn't want to forget that you wanted me to comment about the closet.
Yeah, the closet.
Coming out of the closet.
I like how she said that. So you and I, when we were talking once, you were sharing your past.
Yeah.
And something that stuck with me, and has always stuck with me, is when you left
my narcissist.
Your narcissist, and you finally said, okay, I'm getting away. You grab the kids. I mean, you just leave.
Yeah, we left the state. We moved to clear across the country.
And you didn't really, you had a friend, I believe, take you in, but they didn't have a lot of room. And you ended up, you and your kids, basically living in a flippin' closet.
Well,
right?
first we lived in a basement.
Okay.
And then I came back. My two sons stayed with me. And so I moved into my friend's house, but she didn't have enough room because all of her kids were still at home. So I was actually living in a closet. We call it the Harry Potter closet.
I like that.
But mine was nicer than Harry Potter's. I'll have to say that. There was a room for a bed in it. But, that was just something that I had to go through in order to get free from my narcissist. It was something that needed to happen. And it sounds bad, but I had a roof over my head.
Yeah.
And I had food to eat. And that's what was really important to me. And and speaking of the narcissist, I just have to say, I don't know if I want to say fond feelings for my narcissist. I appreciate him very much, because if it weren't for him, I would not know the things about myself that I know. He was one of my greatest teachers, and I will always be grateful for that. But you cannot, especially a codependent person, it's very, very difficult to be in a relationship with a narcissist and not have those boundaries crossed all the time. So for me, I knew I had to get out. And, but when you talk about a narcissist, I think people use that word loosely.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said that.
They just think it's, I used to think that it was a sophisticated word for a great big jerk. Mm-hmm. No, that's...
Or some crazy person. It's not. It's completely different. You're right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I highly recommend people doing the research online for that. And
maybe that's why some of my wife's family members think I'm a narcissist, because they think I'm just a great big jerk.
No, you're not even that. You're nowhere close to that.
I don't have a problem speaking my mind.
Well, that's completely different. That's completely different.
I think also when you're with a narcissist who also has an addiction, like to alcohol or something like that, it can really escalate. And they wrap you in by fooling you into so many different aspects and things, and then when you're actually behind the closed doors and those, you have no idea about them. Your family thinks they're a wonderful person.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh, wow, this is going to be great. And
people in your church think they're amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, you're behind these closed doors. I mean, myself, I'm living with an alcoholic as well, right? And so the things that happen behind those doors, I don't even want to say, because it's...
Well, and this is...
Again, I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me, but we could make people's toes curl. I say that.
Yeah.
Because sleeping with the enemy show, my life, I can guarantee you, was more than that.
Wow. Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's just...
Well, so it's a perfect pair, the codependent with the narcissist. Because the narcissist goes overboard in praising you and saying how wonderful you are and all of that stuff to reel you in. But you have to realize that that's just part of the cycle.
Well, he also told me how wonderful he was.
Yeah, they do that. They tell stories about themselves and, how they're the hero in the story and...
man of God, all these different things.
Yeah. They know the right words to say. They can even bring on tears to make things, seem really, really sincere. But it's not. It's not. And so you have to recognize that there's the patterns. And I talked to a lot of people. I've been coaching people since the book has been written. I've done some coaching, and especially with people who are in relationships with narcissists. And I said, you have to, they're like, but he's being so nice right now, or, and I said, you have to look at it, the whole picture. You can't take a section of this part where he's treating you really nice and think that's the real person, because that's not the complete picture. You have to look at the whole cycle of where they pull you in so that then that they can beat you down, so that they can feel. And really, a narcissist has no self-esteem, and that's why they have to beat you down, but to make them feel better about themselves.
Yeah, because my brother's in a relationship like that, and why he won't get out, I don't understand. But some of the stuff that he's told me, I'm like, buddy, you need to look it up, and you're going to see you're living exactly what the definition is. Because that's what happens.
Yeah.
She brings him back in, and as soon as he gets all level and thinks everything's great, next thing I know, he is so... I mean, he's going to have a heart attack one of these days, because he gets himself so worked up.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Well, there are healthy versions of... So when we talked earlier about the chemicals that, oxytocin and stuff like that, there are positive things that we can replace with these addictions or with these indulgences. Exercise is one of them. Obviously releases endorphins. And I just barely started doing the ice baths. Have you seen that video?
I go to cryotherapy all the time.
Do you? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Some people are going and jumping in the cold lakes in the wintertime.
Yeah. I mean, you have to.
I've been doing that.
Definitely take some some mind power, but you've been doing the
cryotherapy.
Yeah, that's great.
It's so awesome.
I'd be afraid of significant shrinkage. Just to add that
in. So one of the positive things that I look at is my art. That's a positive outlet for me, because once you get in the zone, you forget about everything else. And really everybody can be creative. People say, oh, I'm not an artist or whatever, but everybody can be creative. People can create computer programs. People can create nonprofit organizations. People, you can be creative. So there are things that you can replace with these addictions or broken beliefs that you've been stuck to.
You change to a different habit, right? So like my wife, when she starts to have a day where she's feeling triggered, first thing she does is she picks up the scriptures and starts reading those.
Oh, good for her.
That's her. She has found that within just a few minutes, it just releases.
That's awesome.
It's gone. Mm-hmm. And they teach you in AA, call your sponsor or call somebody else, because they know exactly what you're going through. Mm-hmm. She has a hard time doing that, but she found something.
There's got to be something outside of yourself, whatever that is.
She found it, and it's working for her.
Yeah, I think recognizing that you can't overcome this on your own. You can't deal with this beast on your own. I think it's really, really valuable to recognize that, and especially alcoholism, from what I've seen, it just seems like such a beast to overcome. Yeah. And if you think, oh, I can do this myself, I don't need any help, there again, I think you're limiting your options. So, but yeah, art for me has been very therapeutic. And I never really thought, I never thought I would be anything other than an artist. I thought I'm either going to be a successful artist or I'm going to be a starving artist, but I'm going to be an artist.
It doesn't matter which one. I'm just going to be it.
Yeah. So.
Well, and again, your paintings are beautiful. I mean, they really
thank
are.
You. Thank you.
I can't remember the name of the one with the boat.
That's Hope Waits.
The Hope Waits.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's on the back of the book. This one.
Yeah, so I don't know if Brad can put that up by the camera, but that is such a beautiful painting. I mean, I've seen it firsthand.
So there's symbols in that. The boat is symbolic of our life's journey. And, sometimes we feel like we're stuck in the mud. But there's the ebb and flow of life. If we can trust that flow will come, that...
like the tide.
The tide, right? Like the tide, yeah. Then that's a part of having hope, right? Hope is something that you believe in that you don't see. And for me, the light is, symbolic of the sunset right there where the light is symbolic of my Savior, Jesus Christ, because that's a source of light for me and comfort. And there's no oars in the boat because you hold the oars. You're steering your boat. And there's also an anchor there, in which for me is recognizing that to have that awareness and that growth mind, to be grounded and level-headed, and have something outside of yourself, outside of the boat, that you can turn to for help. So,
and being grounded is important. I mean, when I've been going through a lot of my self-care and learning different things, I mean, I found out taking your shoes off and just grounding in the grass or the dirt or whatever. Yeah, so whenever my wife and I go to a park, of course I usually have my flip-flops on, but I take those off to feel grounded.
That's a good thing for an empath to do. I'm an empath, and so I often find myself absorbing other people's emotions.
Ah,
And so
I'm
I
one of
bring it-
those also.
Yes. So that's
guys
something
got a lot in
very,
common.
We
very,
do.
we do. So,
Yeah.
so go outside, stand in the grass. I like to do some yoga in there, get my hands and my feet in the grass. But
Another thing I've done that's helpful, like if you're at home and you don't have a way to get to the park, or you're not in the park, but you're experiencing something at home with some anxiety or little things like that, I like to tell people to plant their feet firmly on the ground, look down, and say, I'm here. I'm in this moment. I'm grounded. I'm right where I'm supposed to be right now.
yeah.
And when you start circulating that throughout your mind, then all these other things start to form in your heart and different things like that. And you're able to have a calming, releasing feeling instead of
Yeah.
letting it go to the next level.
and
So,
pay attention to all your senses, right? That
That's a
gets
good
that gets
point.
you in the moment
yeah,
too.
absolutely.
So-
Because that's helped you a lot, Lori, right? With your sobriety. I
Yep.
mean, to be able to know when you've got to ground yourself and get yourself centered again and
Yep.
on the right path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
There's lots of things they do with
So,
that.
I was going to mention when talking about my art, I have a contest going on right now.
Oh,
Yeah, so I have 2 paintings that I've just done, and I haven't named them yet. So I want people to give me suggestions, and whoever's suggestions I use, they win, and they'll get a print of one of my paintings of their
Wow.
choice. And
cool is
also $5 off of a signed copy of my book. I mean, that's locally. If it's someone outside of the local area, then there'll be shipping with that. But anyway, so don't let me forget, because I want your listeners to be able to be involved in this contest.
yeah.
So
That's fun.
yeah, it's exciting. I started a new technique of painting, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, the acrylic pour painting, Pour. Have
I
you heard of it?
haven't.
So
I have not.
have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have these different chemicals in the acrylic paint, so that when you combine them together and then you pour them onto the canvas,
goes-
it makes these fancy bubbles and cells come to the surface, and it's really
Ooh.
cool looking, right? So I'll take one of those and use it as the background for a painting, where I'll do my oil paintings over the top of it. So I can just I look until I see images in that, swirly paint or whatever, and then I create that painting. So I've talked to an art gallery up in Park City, and they said, you put together a body of work like this and we'll sell it for you. So 2 of those paintings that I'm talking about that I haven't named yet, I've used that technique.
That's
So-
pretty cool.
Yeah, and I don't know of anybody. I mean, I know a lot of people. You can go online or go to YouTube and, do the acrylic pour, and they come up with some fancy things. But
But
none
then they
of them
don't put their
No.
on the top of
Yeah, they don't put anything over they don't paint something over the top
Yeah.
of it. So, anyway, it's very. I'll
Do-
show you
do
some
they
pictures
have that
after.
with the numbers? so I can get in there.
Al can paint by number.
Right? Yeah.
I used to be a pretty good artist when I was a kid, because when I was in my body cast, that's all I had to do was just, I would draw, and I would do watercolors, but a lot of drawing. But I haven't drawn for years.
Well,
my mom's phenomenal, but
That's how my mom and grandma were. I remember they always painted these fabulous paintings. I have a few that are hanging in my house. And I remember one time, well, I can do that because they can do it. So I thought that's my talent as well, being passed down. But I was drawing a tiger and I was trying to paint it, and people are like, what is that?
it's a monkey.
That's when I realized that my talent is not painting,
It's not painting.
it's
It's
singing. I'm
singing.
still an artist,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
more
Very cool.
writing music and singing. So, and just another reminder to the listeners, you don't have to paint or sing or things like that. There's so many different things that are talents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I like people to recognize, because some people actually think they have no talent.
Right.
And
Everybody
everybody does. You just have to figure out what that is. So.
Even compassion is a talent.
Mhm,
One of my
absolutely.
best friends in the book, her name's Poppy, because I love the flowers, poppies. So she and her mother have so much compassion, and it's definitely a talent of theirs. So yeah, that happens. Yeah. So
That's so to kind of get off track here and go in a different direction. You said your mom battled alcoholism. Is that
my
right? Or your
dad, my
battled
stepdad, yeah, my
alcoholism
mom
and
was a drug addict.
How hard was it for you to live in that type of atmosphere? I mean, what did you do for yourself to kind of
Well, I had to grow up.
pull you away from it?
I had to grow up really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I ended up doing that was not so healthy is I felt responsible for my parents. I felt like I was my parents' parents.
And how old were you at that time?
14, 15.
You're supposed to be going out and dating and
Yeah,
having
well,
fun.
I was doing that too with one.
okay.
I mean, like I said,
That
I
didn't
grew
sound
up.
too good.
No, that leads into another one of the trials that I've been through.
Okay.
But at 15, I ended up having an abortion, and it was not my choice. But so that was another thing that made me grow up very quickly. And I think back then, the only thing that there was two things. First, my art that I would go to.
Okay.
But I was very much wrapped up in the whole teenage thing. You know, I was on the drill team, and you know, I was a cheerleader, and you get certain attention for being a cheerleader. Although I was the cheerleader that was like not like all the other ones.
Okay.
One of these things just doesn't belong here. But I definitely think that there was my art. And then the other thing that I discovered, which I just stumbled across, it wasn't something that was taught to me. It wasn't something that was, pushed on me. And that was a belief in God. I was actually in an environment where my stepfather was atheist and my mother was anti-religion. And so for me to stumble across that and find it, and that story's in the book as well, where I stumbled across this and the incredible miracles that happened. I mean, there's no other explanation for it. It's just absolutely a miracle. That's kind of what helped keep me going. And even though circumstances in my life and the environment still had an impact on my life, and I still made poor choices, that experience, that first spiritual experience I had, was an anchor for me. I could never, ever deny it. Never. Not to this day could I ever deny what happened.
Isn't that amazing when you get that?
Oh, I feel sorry for people who haven't felt that, but here's the thing. To some people it's given to know. And to other people it's given to believe on their words. That's why I said we can't all possibly have every experience there is to life, but we can connect with each other in our stories.
Oh yeah.
And believe in each other and learn from other people's life experiences. We don't have to experience it ourselves.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember, I think it was last year, I was on the phone with Lori, and I was sharing with her something that happened to me on one of my hikes. And I went on a hike up Big Cottonwood Canyon, hiked to a lake. I was the only one there. There was still 15, 20 feet of snow. You're walking on top of the snow, lake still frozen. And I remember I found this little spot, just this little rock that was just showing. Normally that whole hillside is all rock. And I remember sitting down and just kind of panning across, looking at the mountains and the lake, and all of a sudden I just started bawling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know if you remember that conversation,
I do,
but it's like I felt someone standing next to me and a hand being put on my shoulder saying everything's going to be okay. And I remember sitting there for 10, 15 minutes, just tears rolling down my face going, man, I hope no one comes up here because they're going to wonder what's going on. But I was telling Lori about it, and she goes, you just had a spiritual experience that a lot of people don't ever get. And it was just so incredible to me, because I was going through some rough stuff with my wife at the time. And what's really crazy about it is I still have days, and I had that day today. I got up this morning. I like going outside with my cup of coffee, and I just had that power of the Spirit just going, everything is going according to plan. Everything's working out. I don't know what that plan is. I don't, but that's just the feeling that I was getting, and I'm getting it more and more. So for those who don't experience, I mean,
it's not over yet. You can still experience
it's not,
it.
Yeah,
right?
and I hope that they do. And sometimes you got to recognize it, because I had a buddy once who, we've been good friends since the 1980s. We worked construction together, and he lives in Fort Collins. He came to Salt Lake for one of the motorcycle races, and back in our days, man, we were pounding the beers and partying and just chasing girls and just having a blast.
That self-indulgence.
Yeah, self-indulgence. We were talking about some of the stuff, what we did and how we are now. And I was telling him that I was really struggling with stuff. And he's like, "Are you praying?" And I'm like, "Man, isn't this weird, you saying that to me, And he goes, "Well, are you?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I am." And I says, "But nothing's happening. I don't think he's listening." He goes, "No, maybe you're not listening." Mm-hmm. I went, oh, dang.
I also think that the environment we put ourselves in has a lot to do with being able to recognize that voice. If we're in an environment, both inside of our minds and outside of our minds, in an environment that's not conducive to that, if we have this fixed mindset, I've always been this way.
Yeah, what we were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Then it's going to be hard for the Spirit to get through. But it's not impossible.
No, I feel like not. For me, I've always believed in God. Always. In fact, I would defend his name even though I wasn't opening the door to him. And then when I was on my lowest low and didn't want to live anymore, which is not me, if anybody knows me at all. But when I reached that level, and when he actually, that's when I had my very, very first spiritual awakening, that, like you said, there's no denying, there's no nothing, there's no anything that could make me believe anything less. He saved my life that day, and then from there I was just able to carry on and do the things that he needs me to do. But it was so amazing. That's awesome. It's really awesome. Great. And
it's amazing where life takes us, and I do believe it's not by our doing.
There was a woman here on the podcast a few weeks back, and I can't remember her name, I'm sorry, but she was telling us about, it was the one where she married very young, and she stayed with her husband.
It was Diane.
Diane, and she said she believes that it's because her husband hasn't yet had his spiritual awakening. She says until you have that, she doesn't feel that sometimes people struggling with alcoholism or addiction can get to, the other side of that, the other side of the addiction, and work your way through it. And I think that's important to recognize,
So what is it about the addiction that she feels he can't get to that space?
It's just something that he doesn't do. I think that's what she was saying. He doesn't ever.
Well, and he doesn't believe either.
He
she
doesn't
was saying that he's having a hard time
believing in a higher power, that there's significantly someone greater than yourself that can restore you to sanity.
Right. Yeah. So, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we're going to take another break, guys. We will be right back, and right before we go to break, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Lift Up Concrete out of Kaysville. These guys are awesome, so if you have settled or sunken concrete, give Gregory a call at Lift Up Concrete, because they are a third to a fifth of the cost of tear out and replace.
And they give your concrete a facelift.
Yeah, Lori loves doing that, right? All right, guys, we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Tamara K. Anderson, and I want to share something special with you. When our son Nathan was diagnosed with autism, I felt like the life we had expected for him was ripped away, and with it, my own heart shattered as well. It's very common for families to feel anger pain, confusion, and anxiety when a child is diagnosed. This is where my book, Normal for Me, comes into play. It shares my story of learning to replace my pain with acceptance, peace, joy, and hope. Normal for Me has helped change many lives, and I'd like to give this book to as many families as possible. We've put together something I think is really special. My friends and listeners can order copies of my book at a significantly discounted price, and we will send them to families who have just had a child diagnosed with autism or another special needs diagnosis. We will put your name inside the cover so they will know someone out there loves them and wants to help. I will also sign each copy. You can order as little as one or as many as hundreds to be shared with others. So go to my website, tamarakanderson.com, and visit the store section for more information and to place your order. You can bless the lives of many families by sending them hope, love, and peace. Check it out today at tamarakanderson.com and help me spread hope to the world.
Welcome to the Resilience Talk Network. My name is Jay Walter, and I'm the host of Rebuilding, heard every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. You can listen in and learn how to face your fears, overcome obstacles, and make dreams a reality. So listen every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on the Resilience Talk Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our other sponsor, Serve Pro out of West Jordan. Actually, they came in with all Serve Pros across the Salt Lake Valley from Ogden all the way down to St. George. Brad out there at Serve Pro in West Jordan and St. George, he owns both of those. Phenomenal people. So if you guys have a disaster in your house or you need a crime scene cleaned up, call Brad out at Serve Pro. That was just a little joke, guys. Not serious. Yeah. All right.
Well,
so,
can we also thank Brad?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was saving him till the end of the show, but let's thank him right now.
I want to thank him now.
Okay. Yeah. So before we go on air, man, Brad gets these hugs, you know. So I even give him a hug. Of course, I give him a hug at the end of it. But yeah, if it wasn't for Resilience Talk Network and all of Brad's support and his help, Lori and I wouldn't be having this phenomenal experience that we're having. So, Brad, Thank you so much.
Thank you,
So
Brad.
if anybody's out there wanting to start a podcast or is interested, highly suggest getting a hold of Brad. And you definitely need to do a talk here pretty soon and for the Murray Chamber because they're wanting you to come on as a guest to talk about it. But yeah, Brad is phenomenal and he knows the business extremely well.
Yes, he does.
All right. So before we end our show, you've got books or a book. Mm-hmm. You've got paintings. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, this is a talented woman. I mean, phenomenal. And so I've got a copy of your book. Lori's got a copy of your book. What about our listeners? How would they get your book?
You can get my book anywhere books are sold right now. You could go to Barnes & Noble and order it. You can get it on Amazon, of course, which still to this date has all 5-star reviews.
Ooh, I couldn't see how not, because it's a phenomenal book.
You know, if I'm ever feeling down, I just need to go on and read some of those reviews because then they
boost you back up.
They just make me cry. But anyway, yes. So the paperback, hardback copy are available, and the audio version that we talked about earlier is going to be available in July. So if you want information about that, and I'm going to be giving away free versions of that. So you need to sign up for my email list on findingthediamonds.com. And you just go to findingthediamonds.com and just scroll down and you'll have the email list there. And that's also where you will go to enter the contest to name my paintings.
To the paintings.
Yeah, where you can win a painting. So you have the opportunity to get a free download of my audiobook. You have an opportunity to get one of a painting of mine, a print of mine for free. And then I'm also, for everybody that's entering that contest, I'm going to give them $5 off a signed copy of the paperback version if that's what they would like.
Okay.
If they're local, then that's great. If they're long distance, like I said earlier, just the shipping. But anyway, so there's that. And then if somebody wants me to do a commissioned piece for art, they can reach out to me personally to my email, and that's Sohma, SOHMA .Rae, RAE, Sohma.Rae@gmail.com. And I would be glad to look at their requests.
That is so cool.
Amazing.
Well, guys, get a copy of this book because it is a phenomenal book. I'm sure you'll start reading it. You won't be able to put it down because I know my wife did that. I don't know. My wife's a pretty good reader. I think she went through 4 or 5 chapters, I think, before she finally put it down. And
well, there's reviews that say that they sat down and read the whole thing. I'm like, it takes me 3 years to write it, and you can sit down in one sitting and read it. That's like, that's not fair.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But anyway,
Soma, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
sharing
so much
your
for having me.
experiences, your rock bottoms, you dropped the shovel many, many times, and I'm sure throughout the rest of all our lives, we're going to drop the shovel even some more.
Life is hard. It can be challenging.
Life has a way of hitting you in the gut when you least expect it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that. It's how you get up. It's how you take it. Right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay. Is there
absolutely.
anything else you want to share before we?
No,
sign
just in
off?
case someone missed that. Findingthediamonds.com.
Okay.
Okay. Diamonds. Does everybody know how to spell
Diamonds.
diamonds? DIAMONDS.
Well, I know how to spell it now. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Hey,
Okay.
everybody. Stay tuned next week for another great show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything.
And there's always light after darkness.
Amen. Oh, one last thing. We always seem to forget this. If you guys got any questions, reach out to me at Mr. Al Richards at gmail.com. Lori, if anybody wants to reach out to Lori.
They can go on Lori Warburton's Facebook and request my friendship, and I'll do a messenger there. Or they can go to LORIECHEVY
Chevy Girl
at AOL.com.
Okay, question.
Awesome.
Does your Mr. have a dot after it?
No, so
Okay.
my email is mralrichards@gmail.com.
Okay.
And my Facebook is at Mr. Al Richards, which leads you to the
Okay.
addiction part
Okay.
of things. So, guys, stay tuned for next week. Thank you for being with us. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Absolutely.